How's it going? Ryan here at etrailer.com. Today on our 2013 Ram 1500, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Timbren rear suspension enhancement. One of the things we like to do before we put our Timbrens on is take a few measurements to see how our suspension will be affected. So right now we do not have our Timbrens installed and we don't have any weight in the bed of the truck. So let's go ahead and see where our ride height is. Here at the back of the truck, from the ground to the edge of the wheel well is going to be 39 1/4 of an inch. And here at the front of the truck, if we take that same measurement from the ground to the wheel well, it's going to be 36 1/2 inches. So we went ahead and put a significant amount of weight in the bed of the truck. So let's go ahead and take those same measurements to see how it's riding now. At the back, from the ground to that wheel well, it's going to be 35 1/4 of an inch. And here at the front, it's going to come out to be 37 inches. So without the Timbrens, our truck is really going to sag in the back of it, which in turn is going to actually raise the front end of the truck up. That's going to cause a few different issues. One of them being our headlights. Our headlights aren't no longer going to be pointed level and at the ground. They're going to be raised up, or we don't want them to be, potentially another motorist size as well. And that's also going to decrease braking and steering performance, and that's because our tire is no longer setting perfectly flat on the ground, and because of that, it's also going to increase our tire wear. Whenever you are carrying all that weight in the bed of your truck or pulling that heavy trailer, causing the truck to sag like this here in the back, it is really going to wear out all your suspension components. Now with all the weight in the bed of the truck, we can run through the test course to see how it performs. As I straighten out here, we're going to first start by going over some bumps. So as we make it over these first few, after we hit them, it almost feels like the truck in the back is getting ready to bottom out. And like we just really don't have that support back there that we would like to have. In the front, feels like we're just kind of angled up a little bit, sitting a little further back in our seat. And as we recover over these bumps, you can feel the steering wheel just not being as tight as you would like it to be. Now we can pick up a little bit of speed and do some evasive maneuvering. As I kind of get going through here, I'll cut the wheel. And I'm not gonna lie, you can feel that weight kind of throwing us around, and we just got to grab the steering wheel and point it where we want the truck to go, as opposed to it wanting to come back to center like it would without the weight. And as we continue on, there's definitely more body roll than if there was no weight in the truck. And overall, in my opinion, it's just not giving me that ride that I would like to have whenever I have something in the bed or towing a heavy trailer. So now with our Timbrens installed and the same weight in the bed of the truck, let's go ahead and take the measurements again. So here at the back, from the ground to the wheel well, it's about 37 1/4 of an inch. So it isn't sitting as high as it was from the factory, but still a significant improvement nonetheless. And here at the front, from the ground to that wheel well, it's going to be 36 3/4 of an inch. So just from taking these measurements, we know that these Timbrens are going to do a really good job of help keeping our truck nice and level and help maintaining that factory ride height. So with that being said, measurements are one thing, but how it actually performs is another. So let's go ahead and run our truck back through the test course again. So here we'll do our bumps again. We'll kind of straighten out and get going over them. And as we hit those first few, you can definitely tell the back has a little more support. It feels like our suspension has a lot more travel, so it's kind of just absorbing those bumps a little bit better. As far as the steering goes, feels a little tighter, a little more responsive over them bumps. It's not really getting thrown around as much as it was. and overall just a little bit more of a comfortable ride. So now we can pick up a little bit of speed and run through our slalom course again. So as I get going here, we'll make some tighter turns. And right away, you can feel those Timbrens kind of working independently with each other and helping really reduce that body roll. Our truck feels a lot more planted, like I'm in a lot more control. And as far as the steering goes, since our truck is riding a lot more flat, not getting thrown around, it's a lot tighter, a lot easier to maneuver, and in my opinion, just kind of makes you feel a little bit safer, giving us that better ride. So this is what our Timbrens are going to look like once we have them installed. Now the way these work is they simply just replace the factory style jounce bumpers, and whenever we're loaded down, these are going to come into contact with our rear axle sooner, giving us that support that we need. So if you take our factory jounce bumper and just hold it side by side next to the Timbren, right away you can tell that that Timbren is much larger and much more heavy duty. The factory jounce bumper really isn't going to give us that support that we need. These are more or less just to stop our truck from bottoming out. Now what's nice about these, whenever we're not loaded, they're not going to affect our ride at all. And that's because they're not going to come in contact with the axle until we put some weight on our truck. And since these are progressive, these are more or less going to give us the support that we need according to the amount of weight we have in here. So for example, if we have a lighter load, these are just going to make contact with the axle and give us the most comfortable ride possible. However, if we are hauling a heavier load, they're going to come down further towards the axle, give us more support, and again, give us that comfortable ride. That way, we don't have too much or too little whenever we're hauling something heavy or light, and it'll make life a lot more enjoyable as you're going down the road. And these are going to work independently to help compensate for those off-center loads, and they're also going to have a 7,000 pound load carrying capacity. Now keep in mind, these aren't going to add to your truck's weight capacity. That's just how much weight the Timbrens can handle. Now there is another really popular suspension enhancement available, and that would be airbags. Now the airbags have some pros and cons over the Timbrens. Some of the pros being that you do have adjustability, and in my opinion, sometimes they can give you a little bit more of a smooth ride, and that's in turn to you being able to fine-tune them. Now there is a couple drawbacks to those airbags. The main one in my opinion being that they're going to require some maintenance. They are going to have a minimum air pressure, so you are going to have to make sure you meet that by going out and checking the pressure and filling or deflating if necessary. Another one being, since they do have air fittings and tubing that you need to run, you are always going to have the potential for air leaks. But both the Timbrens and the airbags are going to have their place depending on your application. If it was my truck and I just did some occasional towing, the Timbrens would probably interest me more because you're not going to have to think about them. Once you get them in, they're not going to require any maintenance or anything like that. So you just hook up and you're good to go. As if I was planning on doing a lot of towing and towing a lot of different size trailers that weigh different, the airbags would probably interest me a little bit more, and that's because you can fine-tune them and adjust them to whatever you're hauling. So overall, a nice way to give our truck a little extra support whenever we need it and not affect our ride quality whenever we don't. And since they are maintenance free, once we get them put on, we're not going to have to worry about anything. Speaking of putting them on, they're really easy and really straightforward. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and do that together now. To begin our installation, what we're first going to do is temporarily remove our spare tire, and that'll just give us a little more headroom to work. And with the spare tire out of the way, what you're then going to want to do is jack the truck up in a manner that the rear axle will hang freely. So you're going to want to jack the truck up by its frame rails. Now on each side, directly above our rear axle, we're going to have our factory bump stop. So we need to take these out. They're really easy. You can grab it by hand, just kind of twist it and pull downward. And sometimes if they're a little tight, you can grab a pry bar or a big screwdriver to help kind of get it out too. But with this one out, we'll repeat that process on the other side. Now we can grab our Timbrens and put them in place. Now these simply just push into those factory John's bumper cups. So to make it a little easier, take a little soapy water and kind of wet these down. That'll just help lubricate it and assist it when we're pushing it in. So we'll just line up this portion of our Timbren with that factory cup. We're going to want to push up and kind of spin it at the same time until we get it fully seated. Now if you can't get it fully seated, that's okay. There's a trick we can do to make that happen. So if you're fighting with it too much, don't spend a ton of time on it. You're just at least going to want it to be lined up and started. That way it'll stay in position. It's about something like that. Now we can repeat that process on the other side. So the trick that we're going to use to get these completely seated into the factory cups is what I've done is actually just took our factory John's bumper and a little piece of wood and set that on the axle. I did this on both sides like this. And then what we're going to do is lower the truck, and we're going to use the axle itself more or less to push our Timbren up into that cup. And that's because once our tires hit the ground, the frame of the truck is going to come down and the axle is going to come up. And so we'll use that force to get this properly seated. And we're going to know these are fully seated once this thicker edge here on the Timbren is pushed up pretty much flat with the bottom of our factory cup all the way around. You're going to want to be sure to check that on both sides. Now that we have our Timbrens installed, we can go ahead and lift up our spare tire. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Timbren rear suspension enhancement on our 2013 Ram 1500.